Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight on the December monthly New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives meeting. Thank you guys for braving the cold. Upstate New York, where we are, it was 0 degrees this morning, and it's warmed up to about, it's in the teens at least now, right? It was 19. Double digits. Yeah, it's double digits. It's double digits. It's fine. It's fine. Um, So I'm really excited tonight. I have a bunch of things that I wanted to go over. First of which, Chelsea Coyle is here, and I'll read her bio and stuff in just a minute. But she designed this incredible banner that I want to show off. So
Yay.
this is so cool. It's 6 feet tall. I can't really see the bottom. Um, and then we have a bunch of different mushroom props and things that we'll be able to use to take photos with. And these will all go at the entrance to the fundraising dinner. Is that correct?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Cool.
As
Cool,
people
cool.
walk down the stairs, they will see the mushrooms.
Nice, nice. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Um, and then, yeah, Chelsea, because I want to respect your time, and if you want to leave after your presentation, you can feel free to do that. So we're going to start with your presentation, and then I'll get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts that I wanted to go over with everybody. Let's see. I had it somewhere here. Okay. So Chelsea is a creative designer, community builder, and brand strategist, empowering psychedelic and wellness brands to grow purpose-driven movements. She has helped leading organizations manage and grow engaged communities totaling over 200,000 people across digital and in-person channels. Chelsea serves as community manager for the Microdosing Collective and founded Psychedelic Genius after winning the Mykoski, Mykoski.
Mykoski? Yeah, it's the founder of Tom's Shoes. That's all I know.
Okay. UC Berkeley Psychedelic Social Media Fellowship. She advises clinics, brands, and leaders in bringing visions to life through storytelling, design, and community strategy. And Chelsea is joining us in the context tonight for the Microdosing Collective. And she'll be talking a little bit
Mhm.
about her story and building community. But I'm sure you'll get into it. But the Microdosing Collective, if you have not heard of it, is a group that we have recently joined forces with. And I mean, Chelsea, you're in Toronto, but most of the other people are in the West Coast. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm an outlier. I'm a Canadian, the Canadian of the group, but most of our team is in California or Texas or Colorado.
Wonderful. Well, so
Yeah.
this is just a little blurb. The Microdosing Collective is the first 501(c)(3) nonprofit in the U.S. dedicated to advancing safe, legal, and informed access to microdosing psychedelics. Their growing community of 18,000 supporters is united by the mission to advance education, research, and legalization, and to amplify transformative stories of microdosing's positive impact on mental health and optimal wellness. And learn more at www.microdosingcollective.org.
Amazing, Avery.
All right. Well, so thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm
Yeah,
really
thank you for
excited
having me.
to hear your story and learn a little bit more about community building because as much as it's, we have a small group here in person and we have a bunch of people online, one of my personal goals is to bring more people together in various ways. And
Mm,
so, yeah, why don't you take it
love
away?
that. Thank you, Avery. I'm gonna share my screen and I just want to make sure everybody can see it. So I'm gonna present.
Can't see it. I'm gonna move to the
Okay. It's my face again, double face here. So that's perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Avery. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share my story. I was sharing this with Avery that it's my first time really like publicly speaking about it. I've made some content around it, but I'm excited to like explore this with you. And Joe here is definitely a great big inspiration for me of storytelling our own stories. So yeah, I appreciate you all being here. And I want to shout out Avery. I know you're saying your goal is to build more community, but you're already doing so and you're already amazing at it. And just the task of holding this room of however many people we are here, at least over 10 people, that in itself is so special to hold the space for people like myself to share stories. So just want to say thank you for all of you to be here. And I'm really excited to share on two topics that are very important to me, which is building community and microdosing and psychedelics. So before we dive in, before I move into my slides, I wanted to get a taste of like the group here. I feel like my first question might be kind of obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I want to know if you could show your hands, how many people here have had a personal experience with psychedelics? I have two hands. Okay. It looks like pretty much all of us here from what I can see, which is great. And then from that, perfect. Thank you, Eve. And from that, how many of you have microdosed before? So taking a sub-hallucinogenic dose. Okay, perfect. So I think from that, most people, maybe not all, so that's really great representation. Okay. And then I have a little bit of a deeper question. This is one more for you to reflect on. But my next question is for you to ask yourself, who in my life has benefited from my psychedelic experiences, from your own psychedelic experiences? And I know that's like a big question, maybe a unique question you haven't been asked before, but I invite this to be something you take away in words with yourself after. You can share in the chat as well if you feel called to it. Sharing is caring. But to me, this question really points to one of the most powerful aspects of psychedelic medicine, which is the way it naturally creates this ripple effect, this ripple outwards, and influences all the people around us once we have that within ourselves. And I love here, I bring the design. I'm going to talk about design as we go through this because all of my design has intention to it. So we have this ripple effect going on. And I think in the Western world, we're so conditioned in our experiences to focus on individuality, which of course has its place, personal growth and success and achievement. But also there, we have to remember that one of the roots of psychedelic medicine is, and how it gives to us is the gift of reconnection, reconnecting to ourselves, reconnecting to people in our lives, reconnecting to nature. I don't know about all of you, but my first psychedelic experience was seeing nature in this gorgeous, beautiful light that I'd never seen it before. And even connecting to strangers. I mean, we're all gathering here in some capacity around psychedelics. So again, I really invite us to reflect on this question. Who in my life has benefited from my psychedelic experiences? And talking about community, my invitation with this question is moving forward for your relationship with these medicines to be not just focused on your own healing, but on how that can help the healing and well-being of others. So with that started, that brings in numerous of the threads we're going to talk about: microdosing, psychedelics, community, a little bit of advocacy. My hope is that somewhere in this presentation, you feel inspiration, you feel you can take away an action step. To me, actionable items are really important. And also that you feel you have knowledge of the foundation of the microdosing movement. And I guess I'm curious too, I'll do one more question here. Numerous of you put your hands up with microdosing. How many of you feel like you like understand what microdosing fully is? You understand protocols? Do you feel like you have a solid ground on it, or do you have questions? So if you do feel like you understand, you can put your hand up. Okay. Okay, beautiful. That's great. Well, hopefully this will help you dive in a little bit deeper. So I feel like Avery did a great introduction for me. I mean, I wanted to put this here because Avery, encouraged me to share a bit about myself. And before I go into my story, I want to share a bit of my professional side. And so I'm a really big person, hence the name Psychedelic Genius. I love thinking about everybody's genius, their zone of genius, and what they're the best at. And for me, I think my zone of genius is bringing visions to life, whether that's bringing a design like the slide to life from a vision in the mind's eye, or bringing an event together, or bringing a new brand. That's where I love to be. And the core of it is not just the design for the sake of design, but the design to build community that makes the world a better place. And so, as Avery shared, who's amazing, Avery, you're amazing at presenting people, so thank you for that. I want to highlight here the Microdosing Collective because that's really the reason why I'm here presenting this. We are the first nonprofit in the US to focus on microdosing advocacy and education. And I'm the community manager at Microdosing Collective, so I'm grateful to play a role in all of those different things, which we will talk about more. And then these are just some other of the amazing projects I get to dip my toes in. As Avery introduced, my Berkeley Fellowship created Psychedelic Genius, which were focused on normalizing psychedelic careers and helping people find their place in this wild, beautiful industry. And then also I'll shout out Into the Multiverse, which I highly recommend checking out. And that is really the reason I wanted to put this slide in here is because beyond the fact I'm involved in these things, these are all really beautiful places and resources to start. So I encourage you to check all of these out if you have not already. And in preparing for today's call, I asked Avery, I sent him a WhatsApp. Okay, Avery, what should I focus on? What will the audience want to hear? And his response to me was, how did you get in this space and what have you done with it? So I think that's a really potent question, and we're going to dive into it. How did I get into this space? So this is a very contrast from the last the last slide of pictures of me, pretty vulnerable pictures, but I'm grateful to be sharing them here. I like to say the official beginning of my career in this industry started when I was 19, when I had 50% of my spine reconstructed. So imagine this, I'm going to set the tone a little bit. My first year of university, I'm based in Toronto, I moved to Ottawa. And over the first few months of being in school, I started to feel my spine collapsing on itself. And I compare it to the weight, to the feeling of a boulder on your shoulders, and like your spine just cannot handle it. So with this process, I was very much spiraling out of control. I had no explanation. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. I had no explanation as to why this was happening to me. The doctors had no idea. I was dosing myself on anti-anxiety medications because I was having panic attacks while I was in class. And with the limited healthcare model we have, I basically was presented with two options, which one was to do nothing, or two, to have one of the most invasive orthopedic surgeries that we know, reconstructing my spine, as you can see here. And so I was told that with this surgery, if they were to make one small mistake, hitting the wrong nerve in my spine, that I'd be paralyzed for life. The other risks were I could possibly die. Death was a risk. Also, that the surgery could fail and I would end up becoming crippled by the age of 20 in a wheelchair. So one thing that's important to me is advocating that this is like the face of scoliosis, which means having a curved spine. And for many, myself included, it's idiopathic, which means there's no known cause. So, scoliosis is one idiopathic condition. There's numerous others, but there's a wide ranging group of people who are just left with this structural problem with no known cause. And so naturally, with the option of doing nothing or doing surgery, I chose the only option I felt would give me a chance at a healthy life, and that was surgery, as you can see right in front of me. And I remember laying on the operation table right before I was going in, and I had nurses, moving around me. It was very quick paced, and needles going into my arms, and I started crying. I was just crying on this operating table, waiting to be put to sleep. And a nurse held my hand, and it went black. That was it. And then I woke up, and then there was a white light. And you can imagine what my thought was in that moment. A white light, I thought I died. I thought that was my time and that was it. And I was completely immobile in that moment. I couldn't feel my body. And all I remember thinking in that short but longest moment ever was about everybody that I love the most and that I really want to be alive. I really want to adventure. I really want to create and design. And as I was in this moment of just reflecting on life, I saw my mom's face pop in the middle of this light. I was like, oh, okay, I did it then. I made it. I'm not dead. And I made it through the surgery. So although this isn't a traditional near-death experience, maybe it isn't considered that in like modern medicine terms. To me, this is when I faced my own mortality and I felt I had a second chance at life. And so I'm very fortunate. As you can see, like curvature of my spine, it got actually a lot worse than this. This is right after my surgery. It was a 9-hour surgery. I had 2 blood transfusions. They implanted 2 titanium rods and 11 screws into my spine. And so you can imagine the song Titanium by Sia had a very new meaning to me. I am titanium, legitimately. So, with that said, I was not the same Chelsea I was as I went in. These are some pictures of me in the hospital bed. And though the surgery was over, the worst part really had just started. I spent 3 months learning how to rewalk, how to shower, how to just do every daily life tasks. And in that time, the only source of relief for me was, and the only option available was opiates. So I was obviously prescribed opiate medications. And the way I define my experience on these medications, in the 4 months that I was heavily reliant on them, month one, they were crucial for me. Month two, they were necessary. Month three, they were questionable. And month four, they were terrifying. So my body became extremely dependent on these opiates to the point that I was having symptoms every day, every morning. I was not living a normal life. And again, lack of, like, there's a theme here of lack of support from the healthcare system that I didn't know what to do with it. The pharmacist told me to keep taking it. I have no other choice. So the only option I had was to cut it cold turkey because that's the only thing I need to do at age 19. So I spent a week withdrawing from opiates, from dependency. And through that decision, which was maybe even harder than the surgery itself, my first true medicine came to me, which was cannabis. And so cannabis is legal here in Canada, but at the time it wasn't. So I had to go through the process of getting medical cannabis, but I'm very, very grateful for that medicine. And in the next slide, we hear the quote a lot from the war on drugs, marijuana is a gateway drug. And I rephrase that to say cannabis is the initiation medicine because it really saved me and it really opened my world to the fact that there's alternative treatments beyond anything that the healthcare system is going to share with me. And I want to acknowledge here, like, much love to the healthcare system. I would have not survived, really. I would be this age and not be doing this presentation because I would be in a wheelchair and perhaps paralyzed. But also, there's a clear gap that we all know. I won't dive into it, but this is where I think it's so important we talk about it. So this surgery had a recovery time of about a year and a half to 2 years because my spine had to fuse together. However, 10 months after my surgery, I was rear-ended in a car accident. And so today I see that the universe had a greater plan for me, but at the time, it just felt like life equals suffering. And it was a really hard time. The accident basically shifted the recovery process and shifted my bones. So I had more pain. I like re-experienced the problem that I started with. Then 2 months later, my Nana, who was like my soulmate, my best friend, passed away. My brother was in the hospital and it was all piling up. And then, hallelujah, came psilocybin mushrooms. And I like to say at a time when my nervous system was collapsing, the nervous system of the forest, the mushrooms found their way first into my hands and then into my stomach and my gut, if you know what I mean. And all of a sudden, this condition known as idiopathic, this condition with no explanation that I had, it was explained to me in layers. The root cause was revealing itself to me, not as something to fix, but as my purpose and as something to continue exploring. So some more. This is an interesting photo. One thing with scoliosis is there's a lot of like bracing. So it's almost like a corset, but there's like boulders put in the brace to like push the spine. It's a very painful process. But that's a picture of me in the hospital putting on this brace after surgery. So I had an open wound and it's being like pressured on. This is a picture of my whole spine being covered. But I want to acknowledge in this, mushrooms came and what psychedelics have brought me is the knowing that life and my life is this beautiful spiral of going inwards and outwards, as within, so without. And my what they bring is this idea of synchronizing with our experiences and knowing that everything that we have that comes our way, every experience we have in life, is helping us step into the fullness of who we are and who we're meant to be, and is helping us to do what we're here to create and ultimately to come back to community. So throughout this, I actually needed a second surgery after the car accident, and they accidentally punctured my lung in that process. And it was a whole spiral that I'm not going to dive into right now. But what the beautiful part of that is every year of my life since then, another psychedelic medicine has come in and found its way to support my healing. And every single one of those psychedelic medicines has been critical to my recovery and my health, but most importantly, to my willingness to live with hard times. So I want to come here and acknowledge this is a slide. As I was reflecting, creating this, I was thinking, what is the thing that psychedelics really gave me? And to me, I think one of the most beautiful things psychedelics do gift us is the ability to reflect on our lives and reflect on the questions, how can I share my light with others? And how can my skills and my story contribute to making the world a better place? And you'll see that if you ever find me on LinkedIn, I think my thing is everybody has a gift to share with the world. That is a core belief that I have. We are all here to share our gift in our unique way. So this is a side view of, you know, the the rods and screws in my spine. But how Avery's question started us off, how did I get in this space? That's the personal journey here, but more literally, how did I get in this space? Well, I got my first job at NYMHA Health. I'm not sure if anybody has heard of them. NYMHA does training and they have clinics across North America in the psychedelic space. And I had my final interview for this role on whatever day it was, a random day of the year, but that morning my dog actually passed away. And so I was a mess, but I'm like I cannot push off this interview because this is where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be in this space. And so I showed up. I admittedly had like tears in my eyes as I showed up to this call with the founder. And he was very nice, like, oh my gosh, we could reschedule. And I was very firm in that, no, I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to have this role. I'm meant to work in this industry. And needless to say, I did get the job, which I'm very grateful for. And so from there, I've followed, I like to say, the mycelium of this beautiful industry, which brought me to Microdosing Collective, hence why I'm here today. And I will say microdosing presented itself to me at a time when I needed it most, but it wasn't when I needed microdosing. It was when I needed community. I didn't microdose before when I joined Microdosing Collective, and the healing came first from the group of people that I was able to connect with. And community really is so important. It's interwoven in every step. And I have microdosed since then, and I can say it's also amazing. So I have both of those sides in experience. So I want to dive into this a little bit more. What is microdosing? I know some of you shared, so maybe this is a repeat, but I think most importantly, I want to give a solid foundation and also some statistics that you might find interesting. So microdosing, as a definition, is the practice of taking a subhallucinogenic amount of a psychedelic. It's a very varying description on exactly how much it is, and I think it's important to note everybody's different, but typically it's a 10th to 20th of a standard dose. And another important part of this practice is that it's on a structured schedule. There's numerous different protocols. If you've heard of the Fadiman protocol, for example, in which you can practice microdosing. And one thing I'll share at the end, there'll be a QR code, which is our free guide, which shares a lot about protocols and practices. So you can dive into that there. But just important to acknowledge it's sub-hallucinogenic. And this means, as you probably know, you're not having a full trip. You are not experiencing hallucinations. You can likely or should be able to do whatever you do in your normal daily life. But the goal is to foster cumulative shifts over time that lead to a positive impact on your life. So here's some stats. Here, I really enjoy the statistics because I'm like, whenever somebody comes up to you and has a question about it, boom, you can just give the statistic. And I think what's important to note with this slide is that microdosing is going mainstream, really. We have this important statistic on the left side from the RAND report in 2024. 8 million Americans used psilocybin in 2023, and 4 million of them microdosed the last time they used it. So that means 50% of psilocybin users are already microdosing. And what's so important is acknowledging how culture is already using these medicines. And that's why we love partnering with NYMHA is to really match the culture with the policy and bringing those two hands together. But that is the heart of what we do at Microdosing Collective is to speak not only to those who could benefit and do not have access, but to those who are already benefiting and need the support and structure in the voice. So, yeah, and then the second thing here that I think is an incredible study, I just recently found this. Basically, the study reviewed participants who were microdosing and they wanted to understand how they were using it and the intention behind it. And they found that all of the participants reported that they're approaching it from a methodical, yes, methodical point of view and with purpose. And I think what's so important here is this really shifts on the war on drugs perspective that it's a reckless practice, that psychedelics are reckless, because clearly people are here showing up and doing this from a place of intention, from a place of really wanting to be deliberate with their health, with their growth, with their healing. So beautiful. We have that here. And then I wanted to share too one insight that that I found really helpful. So I've met with some clinics and the different people who work in clinics across Oregon and Colorado. And one of the things that I've found so far in my research and connecting with people is that people love to microdose and start with microdosing as an entry point into the industry because it matches what the pharmaceutical side and healthcare system is already doing. It's something you can take every day. It's something that you can feel you have trust in and bring the outwards in first. So I think there's a lot to share about the point of how accessible microdosing is. And for anybody who's very curious about it, it's the perfect way to step in without going into that full dose. Beautiful. So the next slide I want to share is a bit about storytelling, which I really love sharing the stories because the research and statistics are important. But beyond that, there's communities of thousands of people, if not maybe hundreds of thousands of people, that are speaking to how microdosing in particular have supported them. And these are two amazing stories from people in our community. So one, for example, is Tracy T. She founded Moms on Mushrooms, which I highly recommend looking into if you're a parent or interested in that world of parenting and microdosing and how that fits together. But what's so great about Tracy that I want to spotlight is she's spoken on Dr. Phil, she's spoken on news reports about microdosing, and I think it's just such a beautiful thing to see it come into the mainstream. Then we have James Hall, who a few people here have got to meet at our last dinner that we had. But he has an incredible story. He was essentially, as you can see here, he was snowmobiling and got in an accident, and his brain was impaled by 3 branches. And essentially, he was told that there was there's no opportunity for him. It was basically downhill from there. But he has made an incredibly miraculous recovery, and he associates that with microdosing psilocybin, both beforehand and after. So I wanted to share these stories. I mean, Joe also has an amazing story, which includes high dose, and I believe microdosing, that's for, I'll let him share that maybe later, but I'm sure everybody here has heard his story. But I wanted to share more so like the fact that microdosing is not just for one specific thing, similar to psilocybin, it affects everybody. It can support so many different populations, from traumatic brain injury to parenting to even creatives and entrepreneurship, which is something I've personally been exploring. So it's such a beautiful thing to see, and the stories are perfect examples. All right, so Avery already introduced Microdosing Collective, but here's a little visual for us. And as you shared, we're the first nonprofit in the US to advocate specifically for microdosing. A core belief for us is that different doses need different regulations. And I'll dive into this a bit more about our partnership with NYMHA, but that's such a big reason why I think Microdosing Collective and NYMHA go together so well. And so some of the things over the last, I guess, almost 4 years that we've existed, we've gathered a community of over 18,000 people. We've hosted over 13 events now. We've fundraised a good amount to support advocacy work in different states. And things that I'm especially proud of this last year that I can share this resource after is we've launched a lot of public education outreach support. So our free webinar series, we brought together a lot of thought leaders in the industries to provide education. And also we have monthly newsletters to really break down the science and make it an accessible way for people to enter into the industry and into psychedelics. So talking about NYMHA and Microdosing Collective, these are just some fun photos from our last dinner. We have another fundraiser dinner on Thursday, which I'm very excited about. But I think what I want to speak on, and it's really just applauding everybody here, like in New York. So I think New York, you've done such a creative job of pushing this bill forward and really acknowledging the whole psychedelic industry in the bill and not just, the medical model, really seeing how culture is using it and bringing that to life. And I think the power here, which maybe I'm echoing what you all know, but New York is not just a center point in America, but a center point in the world. New York City, especially, has always been like a very forward-thinking place. So I think for us to push this forward, everybody's support is not only going to change what policy looks like in the United States, but what it could look like globally and in the world. And hopefully that will ripple into Canada too. We're bringing it back. Yeah, but I also want to shout out here, not everybody is pictured, but just like the NYMHA team and all of your hard work. I know we all at Microdosing Collective are grateful to connect with you all and do this together. So it's amazing work. Okay, I'm coming back to the slide that we started, which is this reflection on how those around us can really benefit from our personal psychedelic experiences. And the idea of being a good community member, really. That's why I wore the sweater. I don't know if you can see, but it says community member. I'm embracing the community essence here. But yeah, what does being a good community member in the space look like, and what can we embrace as individuals? And so I want to point out, this is probably one of my favorite slides because even within ourselves, we're already a community. We have over 30 trillion cells right now, just like allowing us to show up and listen to this presentation or for me to talk. And so you and yourself are already a community with so much to offer. And as we extend to our natural needs to be in community with other people, to be outside of ourselves and connect, it starts first with a commitment to be a present community member. And this is a practice. So I wanted to share what this looks like. And I think too, we get so caught up in building community of like, oh, the numbers and let me grow this following and how many people are here. But in all honesty, and all this experience with community, having a group like this of how whatever number we are, 10 people here, let's say, who actually genuinely listen and connect and are present is so much more important and impactful than having Instagram following of 100,000 people who is questionably even engaged in what you're doing. So I think building community, whether you are building community yourself or you just want to be present in community and support it, it all starts exactly with this being a present community member, being a member. And so I created this list that is not complete in any form, but I encourage us to reflect on if any of these speak to you, of how perhaps I can be I can be a more present community member and continue this practice. So being a good community member means curiosity about the people around you. It means being present and showing up with your full attention. And that one's hard. I struggle with that, in all honesty. It means asking yourself, what is my role here? What can I offer? It means with that, investing your time or energy or resources, even when there's no immediate payoff. Being okay with mistakes and committing to creativity and problem solving. And then the last two I especially love: the strength to ask for help and the courage to offer it when you can, and sharing your story and being a voice of support for what you believe in. It's hard to share a story sometimes. I mean, even here I'm sharing my story, and beforehand I was, talking to my partner. I'm like, is my story too much? Should I not be sharing it? Like, I'm sure Joe, I see you nodding because like I imagine you've had that experience too. But the story, you never know what will speak to somebody, not just tonight or not just the night that you share it, but maybe even a year from now, reflecting back. Being a voice of support is one of the most important things we can do to be in community. So, with that said, I wanted to give you some key takeaways of questions. We already talked about some of these, but to me, if there's anything you can leave with, is these three things. One, reflecting on who in my life has benefited from my psychedelic experiences. Two, how can my unique skills and story contribute to making the world a better place? And three, when do I feel most present in community spaces, and what am I doing in those moments? So I want to acknowledge everybody because you already showed up here, and that's being present in community. And there's a group of you that showed up in person, which is like even more amazing with the weather we have. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you all. And these are some links. This is our microdosing manual. If you want to take a picture of that for the QR code, it's free. And then, of course, always happy to connect with everybody as if you have any questions. But thank you all for listening to that. Avery, I'm going to pass the mic to you. I know there might be Q&A.
Uh, wow, Chelsea, what a story. The visuals of your pictures, I think really helped. I mean, not that your story alone is not impactful, but seeing that curve in your spine and then the car crash and everything. Oh my God. Thank you so much for relating that. Um,
Mhm.
the one thing that I mean, when you were saying community so much, are you familiar with the Brooklyn Psychedelic Society?
Yeah, just recently they were mentioned to me. So I've yet to dive into their work, but I would love to hear what you're going to share.
Well, that's their kind of tagline is community is the medicine. And
Mm,
it's just that, that without the people that, we share our moments with, we don't get anywhere. And, that is something that
mhm.
is very important. But yeah, I don't, does anyone here have any questions for Chelsea? Anyone
I
online?
just comment that Brooklyn Psychedelic Society is part of the reason why I'm here today. No doubt about it. They've been around for about a decade, and I've been going to their events and learning from them for a long time. So I'm very, very happy and very. I love the Brooklyn Psychedelic Society. It's as grassroots as it gets.
I think this year was their 10 year actually. So
Mm.
that is correct. Yeah, yeah, they're fantastic.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm going to stop sharing.
Anyone else? Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, what a powerful. Besides your story, I love the bits about microdosing, and I'm trying to think of exactly. I should have written it down, but there's, obviously I'd known about the moms who microdose. I think I've
Mhm.
heard James's story, but it's so impressive when we look at the breadth of ways people have taken these substances that promote neuroplasticity and really allowed them to massage what we need into what we can attain, and it's just so fascinating to me.
Agreed.
Oh, that was the one. One of there was a woman that had joined us early on, and I guess trigger warning, but she was physically abused by a partner, unfortunately, and she was struggling with spinal injury, and like she was in a wheelchair, and her leg had started to atrophy, and she took a high dose of psilocybin, and it re-knit the nerve endings in her leg, and they were going to amputate just below her knee, and she walks now, like she know like
Wow.
she and she attributes that ability to her interacting with the psilocybin mushrooms. It's just
Wow.
so intense, and I think it's something that we really have yet to scratch the surface on the full capacity for what it can really do for people.
Mm.
I did think of some questions.
Okay,
Two, actually.
can you hear Nick's in the room here?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I have two questions. First question, you said that the psychedelics came to you. Did you like find out about it and then seek them out, or did literally someone offer them to you? Like, just curious about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think it's a good balance. For me, the reason I say it like that is because there was always a moment in time where it was offered to me in some capacity. Somebody's like, I have it, or I can give it to you because we're talking about it, or I didn't expect anything and I'm in an environment, like a social environment where it's provided to me. And every time I've tried to force it, I feel like I push it further away. So that's just like my unique relationship with it, where I really trust that the right medicine comes at the right time. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yep, I think so. I have
Yeah,
a second one too. So you
yeah.
mentioned 4 months of taking opiates. If you had to go back today and have like a similar type of procedure, what period would you stop the opiates and move towards a different kind of medicine?
Hmm. Yeah, also a really good question. Thank you for asking. So, I mean, the way this is different for every condition and every person, but the way it was shared with me originally was that after 1 month, I could start tapering off of them. But again, I did not have that support, and there was nobody around me confirming that, and I was experiencing a lot of pain. So I felt that I needed to keep taking them. For me, I would, looking back, though I never look back and think I would change it because I do believe everything happens for a reason. I probably would have tapered off as soon as I could have, even with the pain that comes with it. Just because the longer I went with it, the more dependency I had, and the harder it was to go off of them, the harder the withdrawal process was. Yeah. So for me, like it highlights a really big gap in healthcare because I called the pharmacist and I was talking to my doctor and I was getting different answers from different places. Like the pharmacist saying you should keep taking them if you're experiencing any pain, but the surgeon saying after 1 to 2 months you shouldn't need them. And like here I am as one young person just having no idea what to do with it. So I think it's having people who know how to navigate that medication and having people who are psychedelic aware or aware of these other medicines that can help you taper off of them even better. I think that's really
Yeah.
the takeaway for me. Yeah.
Joe, I
Thank you
know
for asking.
Joe, you had a similar experience, but you were for you the opiates were a years long
Yeah,
fight,
yeah.
right?
I was on tramadol and oxycontin. Tramadol I started. Tramadol was on for years, and then when that wasn't doing it, and then I added oxycontin, and so I was on that for a few years. It got bad. I didn't, I never was looking for needles. I never went to heroin or anything like that. But it just got to the point where I needed more and more of it, and it wasn't helping my cluster headaches at all. But I had to get off of it in 2 weeks. So I had to titrate off of both of those in 2 weeks. And Chelsea, I can't imagine what you went through in your situation, but as far as that withdrawal thing when you have to taper off it, yeah, it's not fun at all. So I feel you.
Hmm.
I'm glad you made it through. And boy, some people it takes many years for them to learn the life lessons that you've learned already at such a young age. So I think you're way ahead of the game. You're gonna
Thanks,
be all
Joe.
right,
I
really.
appreciate that. I appreciate you.
Chelsea, did you see the question from David
Oh,
in the
yes,
chat?
here. Yes. Okay. Did you tell your doctors when you started seeing the benefits of psilocybin? What was that conversation like? How did they receive your experience? So I'm going to preface that this is not what I recommend. This is my experience. But I personally have leaned away from the healthcare system here. And I know in Canada, there's some ways in which maybe we have it a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse. But I have found I had one conversation where I shared about psilocybin, and I was very much shamed. And from that point on, I was just so angry at everything about the system that I decided alternative is my way. So I do work with a naturopath who understands that I use these medicines. Obviously, there's limitations to both sides. But to answer this question more directly, yeah, the conversation from more traditional healthcare was really shitty. Even for cannabis was really bad, like really bad. They were very not supportive. I had to go back to my pediatric doctor. I was 19 going to a pediatric doctor because he had a good relationship with my mom to like beg him that I know this is right for me, like please let me try this. And that was the only way I was able to get access. So yeah, it's tough out there. It's again, that's why I say like the personal experimentation, I don't necessarily recommend that. I think people you need to work with a healthcare provider who understands, but there's this middle point that's so difficult for people like myself who no healthcare providers there for us. And so experimentation is the only way. And then safety becomes the most important thing, which is what this bill, is so important to us for. Yeah. Thank you for asking all of those questions.
Do your parents currently support your use of psychedelics? Do they know about it?
My parents? Yeah. So the closest parent I'm really in relationship with is my mom. And yeah, she asks a lot of questions, but I think she's a hippie at heart. And she had her own fun. She had her own fun in like the younger years recreationally, which she like admits to. But she yeah, she supported it over the years. I think the science, the statistics really help. And I think her seeing, after being in a place of so much worry for me, her seeing how much it's helped me, it's like she can't argue, you know? So and I'm actually in a place right now that I'm hoping it can, maybe help her. And I'm starting to explore not just for my mom, but for all of my family, like how can I introduce this and
Uh,
what does that relationship look like?
Well,
Yeah.
and Chelsea, it comes down to telling stories and
Hmm.
talking about how they've impacted you, but also your network. That was
Hmm.
one of the things I wanted to say is I loved that question because so many people forget about how their well-being impacts those around us. And I
Hmm.
mean, especially for your family, your immediate family, like if you weren't doing well, everyone else also struggles, whether
Hmm.
realize it or not. And if even if you like, you're having a pain day and you go order a coffee and something doesn't come out, you might snap at the person that made you the coffee. It's not their fault, but it's,
Hmm.
you're struggling with something and they have no idea what it is. And, when you have a more even playing field, your mental state is in more alignment, everyone benefits. And that's,
Hmm.
I really feel like, I mean, that's what I would not be who I am today without the substances that I consumed when I was younger. And, it's, that's, I feel like,
Yeah.
it's gotten me to where I am and, the philosophies that I've built. So it's important that you share,
100%.
share your stories. That is really critical stuff.
Yeah, you
100%.
bring up a really good point, Avery. I would say personally for me, it's definitely helped me to um not address, but like come to people differently. Like you never know what someone's going through. Even if I'm going through something, I'm able to navigate that much better emotionally than before. And that's a lot of going inward. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And thank you so much, Chelsea. I want to offer gratitude, not a question, but gratitude for
Hmm.
providing this very vulnerable story, and the more sharing and the more caring through sharing, it shows the impact of how the medicine has helped you, and thank you also for being like an incredible warrior for your family too. Like that's
mm,
incredible, to want to take on, say, hey, I want to be someone that kind of shifts the cycle of what my family goes through and how I can help them to be better for further generations. That's beautiful. So thank you for your presentation and everything you've been through, and just being so open with that.
Thanks, Pammy. I really appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I think there's like it also leans into a topic so much of like ancestral like trauma and how it passes down intergenerational trauma. That was a huge, I didn't dive into that, but that was a huge thing for me that I uncovered with scoliosis in particular is like I saw the intergenerational trauma line, which did connect to my mom. So I think again, it's so easy to look back on generational trauma and even blame the people before us of like why they did what they did. But for me, the psychedelic medicine opened up, as you shared, Pammy, like a new way of approaching it, a way of understanding that everybody's doing the best with what they have. So it's just yeah, it's all just such amazing stuff. But yeah, thank you all for
So,
listening.
and not directly psychedelic related, but I highly recommend to anyone to go to poetry open mics because talk about
Mm.
being able to see other people's the way that they handle trauma because a lot of people sharing poetry is very much like how do I respond to things that have hurt me. um, and I mean that too is such a powerful opportunity to get some, not trauma bonding, but it's just like, oh, you've experienced that too, or you've experienced this completely different thing, but have responded in a very similar way. And hearing those stories, I do think, like, it helps us. I guess it's like, it was my group therapy. I don't know, like, I have never gone to like a professional therapist or whatever really, but like, that too, I sharing stories in that way and listening to others share stories is such a valuable tool to connect and build community.
100%. It's such a great suggestion. And just anything creative. I think the creative arts are how we express as humans. So I love that. The poetry suggestion. That's great.
Yeah.
I
Does
honestly
anyone have
kind
any
of
other?
want to.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I just say I wanted to kind of tag in what Avery said there. Collective expression of any creative art is a very important way for us to, quite frankly, the American culture does not encourage sharing of emotional frailty. We are supposed to suck it up, move on, and deal with whatever is coming. To be in a place where you're allowed to share those emotions, or at least have the acknowledgement that someone else is going through them, combined with the psychedelic experience, can be such a freeing moment because you realize you're not alone. And I do agree and want to really like uplift what Avery said there as a shared experience of something that we don't really get in most day-to-day experiences in the Western Anglophone world, is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Go ahead.
I have one question. Do you have any advice for us? In our community, we have like some people who are very conservative, and we also have, frankly, a drug problem. And so, how do we present ourselves? Because we're looking to get more involved. How do we present ourselves in such a way that that shows that we're legitimate, and and that doesn't succumb to the kind of negative grouping that we would have, where one might see us as a bunch of drug users, or and the other side might see us as a place where they might get drugs, and we want to like not fall into that, but like show them who we really are, and that's legitimate health that we're pursuing.
That's a great. I know, Chelsea, I'll let you respond in a second, but one of the things that we did as New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives is we built a database of conversation starters to use with like family, friends, and neighbors about like kickstarting that like hard discussion about like, hey, you've heard that these things are dangerous drugs, but here's some truth I'm about to share with you. Because really we've been doing a lot, but all of the things that we've done have worked to destigmatize the popular story and really share how people have used all of these different substances to really be better members of community. And I think that it is hard, because especially if you are talking to more conservative people, they are going to filter.
Right.
But the more you can pull that filter back or color it in a certain way, the truer they start to see. And I will say, if one of the things in talking to lawmakers is this is a real bipartisan issue. And we have just as many Republicans as Democrats backing access to this because of the way it has shown promise in helping our veterans, our heroes, our first responders. And, starting with care about our veterans, you don't have to get that dirty right away, but like, that's, if someone starts like pushing back, that is something that is.
So you'd like center it around testimonials and personal stories and experiences.
Because like as Chelsea sharing her story, I mean, when you get in front of somebody who is skeptical and whose body language shows that they do not believe anything you're saying, and then I don't know if you've heard Joe's story, but like, you know, there are so many people whose testimonies that by the time they're done telling the story, people are leaning forward and their arms are uncrossed. And I mean, I've seen it happen and I've heard it happen. Corinne, who's not on the call now, she and a Dr. Crystal Carrington did an interview on a radio station out in Utica. And the guys were so skeptical, just thought they, you know, and Dr. Carrington were druggies or whatever. Right. But by the end of the 20-minute talk, they were like, we had no idea that this could be so powerful. How do I get involved? And I mean, I heard the change in their voice, and it was just, I was like, holy moly, like, it was incredible. Yeah. But it really comes down to telling your story and being truthful. Don't things. And just like, if there's parts that are more difficult for you to tell, then talk around it. But speaking from your heart and telling, you know, how you've been impacted and how, because of who you are, how your community has benefited is that makes the most difference. Chelsea, did you want to add to that?
Amazing, Avery. No, I think that's great. I think the only thing I would add is in my experience, it's this beautiful art of balancing the stories and everything amazing Avery just shared with the science. And for me, I lean on both of those and I feel the room of the person I'm with or the people I'm with. And sometimes it's this blend of both. Sometimes it's only stories, sometimes it's only science. But that's why too, I hope like that. And I can even share this deck with you all, like, you know, so you can reference those stats, like having 2 to 3 key statistics that you feel match your story to get the point across is so good to lean on in these conversations. And not just, it doesn't just have to be key statistics like 4 million people or whatever it is. It can be stories around statistics if this makes sense. Like, for example, I know Portugal as a country decriminalized all drugs and replaced it with health centers to try to alleviate the drug problem that they had. So like that is a statistic in a more political, like storytelling way, if that makes sense. So I think ultimately what I would add, as I shared, is that beautiful art of science and storytelling and having both in your repertoire to be able to lean on.
I would also add to maybe have like an elevator pitch. Have some, like, you know, say like have 2 or 3. Chelsea was saying like 2 or 3 points. I think that's absolutely right. Have you know, something short and sweet that you can hit them with, and then give them something to take home. Like give them the fantastic fungi on, you know, or how to change your mind. You know, something that's easy access that they can go and do their homework on, and then they could, you know, and then the picture's worth 1,000 words, and those are 2 great documentaries. So.
Mm-hmm.
Or send them the YouTube link to Joe telling his story through Reconsider. But yeah, great points. I mean, there's and you know, there is no one right way, and when you get into these conversations, you have to play it out as like, are these people more? Do they want facts? You know, they're not going to believe anything I say anyway, and so it's like, well, you know. It just sometimes it's not a battle worth, but like Joe said, leave them with something. Oh, here's some more things. Read this book, or you know, whatever. There's always that's going to hook people. I mean, that's what we found in talking to lawmakers is, you know, they will often start out very skeptical, but by the time we hit them with facts and tell a few personal stories, I mean, they're almost always, how are we doing this? Not why, or just like, and then what do you want from me? You know, it's pretty impactful. And once you lay out the science and you know, actually detail truths, over like, here, this is your brain on drugs. You know, like that's the 80s were so bad with just like mucking things up. And I mean, that's, and I'll just tell one more story, but there's a gentleman that I've been trying so hard to get to be honest and speak, but he was a Navy SEAL, first in to Operation Desert Freedom in Iraq. He's a state trooper captain who worked in Andrew Cuomo's office. And he said that he was experiencing lots of pain, and a fellow, like another Marine or something, gave him some cannabis gummies, and it took his pain away. And that's when he was like, oh, the government's been lying to us. I'm not going crazy. This is actually just making me better. And then he tried psilocybin. And I mean, he was crying when he told me this, but he was like, if I could have given my officers this, I would not have had to sit with their wives at the funerals. And I was just like, why can't you say this? Because I mean, that is such a, you know, I can say it and wow, it's an impactful story, but like when you hear it from the person, it's so much more impactful.
That's why we encourage people to tell their story if they can, because the more people that come out, the more people are going to feel safe talking about it. And this, Avery mentioned those meetings that we've been having with legislators on both sides of the aisle. When we get in there and we open up and we tell them our stories, a lot of times the staffers will say, hey, I've had an experience myself, or they know about microdosing, or I had an uncle who give us their own story. So it's important to start talking about it more and normalize it. It needs to be normalized.
100%. And every person, oh, go ahead, Avery. Oh, I was just going to say, like, the way I always see it is we're all like different archetypes or experiences of humans, and different people are going to relate to each of us. Someone might relate to you, Avery, more than me, you know, or Pammy more than Joe, for example. And we literally need as Avery just said, and Joe, everybody needs to share their story, because every person's going to connect to somebody different. And also acknowledging that sometimes you're going to be the one who just plants the seed, and you're not going to be the one to change their mind. But because you planted that seed, they talk to another archetype of person a year later, and that's like the thing that just gets the ball rolling for them. So also trusting, not forcing, but trusting that at the very least, planting a seed is such an important, incredible act. And at the very most, you might totally change the ball for them, but wherever you are in that spectrum is important. And I also like, congratulations, because you've now been initiated into this beautiful role of wanting to share and wanting to do this. And it's this like practice of gathering all the statistics, all the stories, constantly learning and practicing this art of knowing who you're speaking to, and the best way to get that across. And it is a practice.
Well said.
Amen.
Well said. Well, it's already past 8. I wanted to just discuss a few more nuts and bolts. Another success that I would like to share with everybody is last week, there was a mushroom farmer summit in Manhattan. And one of the things, the gentleman, the owner operator of Mushroom Queens, talked about our advocacy, and a lot of the other mushroom farmers are now more aware of, you know, what we're doing, and I'm connecting with even more farms because as a farmer, that's one of the things that I've been trying to do, is just connect with other mushroom farms across New York, so we can come together and you know, talk about how every single one of us has had people at farmers markets come up and be like, hey, where's the good mushrooms? And you have to say they're all good mushrooms. I think that's a standard, like, contractual response. But I'm really excited to have connected in such a large format. I think there were over 50 other mushroom farmers there, and a lot of them were in New York. And so that's really where we have to energize more conversations, is where that concentration of people is. I shared the banner, and if you those of you who joined a little into the call. This is a banner that Chelsea designed, and we will be using during our next fundraising dinner in Manhattan on Thursday. And I'm really stoked. Rick Doblin is going to be there, and a bunch of other people, and many people have already committed to funds. And we hope, our goal is to raise $250,000. And so with that money, next year we'll be able to do a lot more marketing, a lot more printing, and a lot more direct lobbying. And so we are already planning for our 2026 Lobby Day, which is always down at the Capitol. So if anyone here has a table or an organization that they would like to occupy while we try to talk to lawmakers, or just boots on the ground, walking around, interacting and telling stories to lawmakers would be super helpful. I personally want to do late March or April, because one of the things that I want to do is do an in-person Brooklyn Psychedelic Policy NYMHA meeting. So it'll still be through Zoom. It just won't be here. We'll be in person down in Brooklyn. And I've been talking to Colin, the executive director for BPS, and he's trying to activate his community to get a little bit more policy oriented going there. And our guest speaker last month was Senator Julia Salazar, and she's super passionate and very hopeful that something does get passed in 2026. And Amy Paulin too, she went to a summit at Harvard talking about research for psilocybin containing mushrooms, and I know she's very energized. So there's 4 bills currently in process in New York, and the A2142 is the one that our team is most heavily advocating for. But if we have to shift our focus and advocate for something that provides a little bit narrower access, but opens the floodgates a little bit, then, unfortunately, that is what we would have to do, because, we do want to see something in New York change, because I do think that will impact, as Chelsea said, the way the rest of the country / the rest of the world, starts seeing these things. So we want to do a couple other New York City actions, and then maybe not for this lobby day, because I was talking to our inner team and they just don't think it's quite ready. But Colin has said that David Bronner would most likely fund like a tour bus or 2 to come up from New York City with a group of people. So once we, get some people activated down there and we have our lobby day in like 2027, or whenever, maybe it's a second time, maybe further in the summer, or not quite into June, if we can gather more of a group instead of just like some small isolated folks, I think that would be also very impactful.
So I think if we had like Ken Kesey's original bus, maybe we could fill it up quicker. Might be more interesting.
All right, I'll see what I can do, Joe. I'll see what I can do.
I'm sure you could find it probably in some museum somewhere. Maybe we could pull a heist.
I've seen that. It was at the Gathering of the Vibes concert a couple of years ago.
I don't know if it would be great for lobbying efforts to have that posted all over, but it would be fun.
Well,
in another world.
That is one of the things that I actually was politely pushed back, is that we should have very serious, not tie-dye, just blue or something, because we don't want to scare people, Joe.
I know.
Well, I'll go on a bus ride with you anytime, man.
I hear you.
Susie May, thanks for joining us.
Hi, I've been here most of the time. I was just crying because Chelsea, your story resonates so beautifully. I'm trying not to cry again. Psilocybin and medical cannabis also saved my life. I suffered from chronic pain for a couple of decades after a car accident, and I turned to alcohol because I didn't have access to cannabis. And finally, New York legalized medical cannabis. And as soon as I had my medical card, and I was able to um, start with that. And somehow yeah, the medicine called to me, and I started doing monthly full moon psilocybin journeys. And several years later, it's like a new life. I'm starting grad school next year. I just graduated with my psychology degree, and I want to be a psychedelic assisted therapist. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I'm so inspired. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm gonna cry now too. We're just gonna
Yeah,
start a
that's all
crying
happy
chain.
tears.
I'm really happy to hear that,
Thank
Susie May.
you.
I would love to connect to beyond this and like congratulations on your journey as well. That's so amazing. So I'm so happy it resonated with you. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, likewise. Okay, that's it.
Uh,
Beautiful.
awesome. Well, does anyone else
Uh,
have any other final thoughts? No? Well, fantastic. Well, Chelsea, again, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that, just chimed in. And Susie May,
Yeah.
that's exactly why we need all of these different stories, because it is that
Yes.
you never know what is going to be that thing that then opens the floodgates. And even that one purge, because it's like, oh my God, someone else experienced what I experienced. Wow,
Hmm.
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And one more thing, I appreciate your quote, something to the effect of having two or three scientific, I put a bunch of research together for NYMHA, my internship earlier.
Yeah.
Officially graduated this week, so it's cool. So I thank NYMHA.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's
Yay.
all very like, whoa, hasn't sunk in. Um, Yeah, so I'm still adding to the research, and it's exciting. I can't even keep up with all the research that's coming out. So I'm hoping that with these bills that we can also get better access to the research, because ultimately I do want to go on and be involved in the research. I think I lost my point, but oh yeah. So I always say I believe in the woo side. Like you got to have the woo with the science because we can't forget
Yeah.
where the medicine comes from. We can't forget the people and the culture that it comes from and the spiritual aspect. But at the same time, we need the science to support it. So I do appreciate the quote. I wrote it down to have the science to back up the beautiful story. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that helped. And I think too, I want to applaud your role, like how you've shown up for the community clearly and sort of disseminating and like making these studies accessible because research is not always easy to read. Like it's not always clear of what's happening. And
Yeah.
I also went to school for psychology, so I understand that like background and that experience. And that's a task in itself, and that's a gift you're giving. So also like congratulations and applauding you in that process. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to go back to school if it hadn't been for my recovery journey. And plant medicine and psilocybin's been a big part of that. And I'm excited to share that with other people. And, that some things aren't for everyone, but, as a future therapist, mental health counselor, I do want to have that as an option for the people that I'm helping guide on their journeys. So, yeah, it's
And
exciting times. It
Amazing.
really is.
Yes.
and Susie May put together quite a database, and we are working on trying to make that public in some way. It'll probably be on our website. But I mentioned, I mean, I didn't tell you guys, but at the meeting that we had prepping for this dinner, but as a member of the Northeast Alliance for Psychedelic Access, NEPA, whatever it is, we collaborated. There's people in every state from Maine to Maryland that are trying to do something. And we're trying to pool these resources so that every state doesn't have to reinvent the wheel and go like, oh, we need research, we need this, we need that. And so Susie May, and there was someone in Massachusetts, I believe. Did you guys actually
Jamie
connect?
Morey, right? Is it Jamie or?
Yeah, but there was also like another intern or something. Or did
Oh,
Susie May, did you? I'm sorry to
We had a
drag
brief,
you back in.
we communicated over email, and thank you for reminding me now that I'm gonna have a little bit of time in between starting grad school, which I'm gonna need a letter of recommendation. I mentioned it to Corinne, so just in case, just want to make sure because I have to get my application in. I've decided to go to SUNY New Paltz because they have a mental health MS in clinical mental health counseling. So I'm thinking that'll be a good fit for me. But yeah, I will touch base with him again for sure. Thank you for the reminder.
Cool. And I would absolutely write something up for you. So for sure.
Thank you. I'll pester you about it later. Thanks, Avery.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this brisk December night. And we will still have meetings January, February. They just won't have an in-person component because Indian Ladder Farms will be closed. And then I'm thinking maybe February will actually be in person in New York City. So if you are down in the city, stay tuned for that. And then, yeah, so until then, may the spores be with you.
I love that. Thank you, everybody.
Bye all.